Give me a little intro there, Gomer.
There's no turning back now.
Let's put on the show.
You're listening to the Station 71 podcast. My name is Mario, and this week I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Beth
and Brian.
So we've got a lot to cover this week, it looks like. Let's dive straight headfirst into our news as usual and get some of this fun stuff out of the way. First thing that we've got on here is that Disney has announced that they have a new Disney look. The Disney company has changed their, like I said, quote unquote, Disney look to shift more towards inclusion and allowing cast members to be a little more expressive with their identity. Yeah. So this doesn't mean it's changing too much. This feels more like a step in the direction of the times, which is great. The big notable thing is the tattoos and obviously, nail polish and whatnot. I don't even know how to explain this because this feels like it's kind of just a long time coming at this point.
Right. So I guess basically we should, detail exactly what it means before we dive into our thoughts.
Yeah.
So visible tattoos, as long as they're not on the face, head, or neck, and they cannot be larger than the cast member's hand, and obviously tattoos that are offensive are not acceptable. Hairstyle and hair length is now at the discretion of the cast member and can include a full shaven look, even including lines and shapes, as long as they're not offensive. Non-natural colors, though, are not permitted. And then also restrictions on facial hair have been relaxed. All mentions of length and shapes have been removed from the guidelines, and the only requirement is that it should be groomed and well-maintained. 2 earrings per ear are now permitted, with a maximum size of 2 inches for the earring, I guess, itself. So it doesn't matter where on the ear it is, it just has to be only 2 per ear. And finally, nail polish can be worn as long as it is a single color or a French manicure. Decals and charms are not allowed, and nail length cannot be longer than 1/4 inch beyond the fingertip.
Now that last one leads me to ask a question. Were you not allowed to have any nail polish on before?
I know you weren't if you worked in food service because of chipping, but I don't think you were allowed to at all.
From what I was seeing on Twitter, which again, take that for what it is, it's Twitter. You were allowed to, but there were specific colors you were allowed to have, and it had to be like a solid color.
Okay. Probably like neutral tones.
Maybe.
Like nudes and like subtle colors, not like bright pink or black or something.
I was just wondering because it seems like having painted fingernails almost would fit in more of that, like the classic Disney look, almost like they would want you to have that.
Right. So, like you were saying, Mario, I think this is a step in the right direction. It's nothing completely drastic except for, like you said, the tattoo thing I think is pretty significant for Disney. Everything else kind of seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah. Like I said, it feels like it's a long time coming, and it feels like we are at a point now where this shouldn't be surprising, so it's fine. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that's going to be upset about someone expressing themselves, so this really doesn't affect me. And I also feel like, unfortunately, even though we're talking about it in the news, and I'm the one that put this in here, none of this news affects us, and none of this news affects anyone going to the parks, which is partially why I wanted to put this in here, because I really just want people to let people express themselves.
Right.
That's my whole take on this. I've seen it enough this week, like since they made this announcement, that people are upset and not treating cast members like they're people, which is super annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I see the counterpoint to the extent that some people are saying, like, well, part of that appearance, especially somewhere like on Main Street, is kind of part of setting the atmosphere. But it's like that only goes so far. And honestly, like you said, it's people. It's individuals that are actually performing this job. They are not actually taken out of the turn of the century, So at a certain point, I think these people that are getting upset about this need to have enough of a suspension of disbelief to say, okay, this is a person that is living in 2021 just like I am, playing a character as a cast member to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And be okay with them possibly having a small tattoo.
Yeah, and I think it's good that they have updated these guidelines also, because it's going to make their quality applicant pool a lot larger, because it's I feel like especially with our generation, you'd be pretty hard pressed to find a ton of people who don't have a tattoo.
Right.
Well,
that don't have a tattoo, a piercing, something that would have violated the old, Disney look policy.
The other
right,
thing,
because you couldn't even wear a cartilage piercing before.
Right.
The other thing to that too, and I really, really, really hate to say this because it sounds like I'm being negative about the fact that they're changing the Disney look, but you also have to remember how many people worked for Disney before they laid everybody off. And then they laid all of those cast members off. They need a bigger applicant pool at this point. Not everybody that they laid off is going to want to come back. And unfortunately for Disney, that was a lot of people.
Right.
Well, the next news story should be a little less controversial, hopefully. We got word recently that Club Cool is going to reopen at Epcot this summer. With a new location, Club Cool is going to be coming back to Epcot in the newly announced Creation Shop, which will replace Mouse Gear. I'm not a huge fan of that name, but it is what it is. But the Club Cool experience that we all missed pre-pandemic will be back with hopefully the same flavors, and hopefully they will all be working this time.
The only thing that I want to make sure that this is the authentic Club Cool experience like we used to have is for them to transfer the sticky floors into the new location so it feels like home.
Yes, that would be great.
But honestly, I don't know who would not be. I can see if you don't care, but who doesn't want Club Cool to come back? Like,
right.
You get free drinks in Epcot,
and
what is not to
delicious
love about
ones,
it?
a lot of them.
A lot of. I was hoping you would.
I mean, that frosty melon.
Oh, that frosty melon Fanta.
Is that at the Coca-Cola bar in Disney Springs?
Atlanta?
No, the one in
was
Disney
like-
Springs. No.
Because let me tell you guys, I went to World of Coke in Atlanta, and their tasting room was significantly reduced because of COVID. And I could see that they had Fanta Melon Frosty, but they were not tasting it. And I even asked one of the employees, I was like, hey, can I get some of that? I see that it's over there, but I can't get to it. And she's like, sorry, that machine's actually not hooked up right now.
Oh no.
But
I know.
tried.
I'm sure you did. I know in Disney Springs, when you go to the Coke bar, like the lounge up top, they also do tastings up there. And I believe they're doing theirs mostly at the full range that they would be serving before. And I'm guessing if the one in Atlanta has it, the one in Disney Springs has it as well.
Well, I heard something about all of the Melon Frosty getting removed from Disney World.
Interesting. I did not hear that.
I'm pretty sure they don't even have it at Skipper Canteen anymore.
Wow.
But maybe this could be its triumphant return.
I'm
Club Cool.
I'm not gonna lie. We went to Skipper Canteen on our last trip, and I didn't even look for it because I didn't know it was there.
Wow. Fake fan. I'm just kidding. But no, I am very excited to hear that Club Cool is coming back. It has been very sorely missed.
Yeah. So next thing that we have on here, I hate the title of this, but I'm going to read it anyway. So Disney has held a quote unquote open mouse sneak peek of the Moana themed rooms coming to the Polynesian. I really put this in here
That's
because
pretty bad.
yeah, yeah. I really put this in here because I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on these rooms. So I know we all really like the Poly. These rooms are definitely something. How do you guys feel about them?
Well, I've never stayed at the Poly, so I didn't know what the rooms looked like before anyway. I am kind of ambivalent.
I like it just because it's not as in your face as something like the Little Mermaid rooms are. You know, it's like art animation. I think those are really over the top, and it looks like for these Moana themed ones, they actually tried to kind of blend it in with the overall theme of the resort, and it works a lot better because of that.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's for me, that's what I was thinking when I saw these. Like, they look a little more modern, but I think that that's also kind of like the direction that Disney's heading with a lot of these rooms. For example, like the contemporary with the Incredibles rooms that they were doing, those I don't think they fit in too well, but they're also a more modern design. Granted, that's kind of the whole contemporary the get up for that. But I think they did a really good job with fitting them in. Also, Beth, there's a photo of the shampoo and stuff in here. In this article, I just realized as I was scrolling, if you were curious as to which one it was.
Well, so I could see the one in the shower it says Sea Marine, but then there's like little mini bottle versions of other stuff. Is that not shampoo? I guess one is mouthwash, right? Maybe it's just like a shower cap and other stuff. It was just
The other
blurry,
one's a
I couldn't
body
tell.
lotion too, and the like the actual soap.
Okay, so it's so all the resorts have the Sea Marine sea salt scented stuff now, I think is the thing.
I think so.
Bummer.
I'm also grabbing photos of our room because I found them. They're just way far back in my photos.
And
Did
for
it-
anybody listening that can't see the pictures, the ones in the shower are bolted in. So if you want to steal it, you're gonna have to bring your own bottle and just pump it all into it.
You know what? So I guess we can cut out all the parts that me and Mario were talking about while Brian was having technical difficulties, but we could leave this part in. We were talking about the toiletries when Brian had a little difficulty, and I think I finally figured out why the scent that they use is not super awesome. Is so that people don't bring their own bottles and pump it into the stuff to take home.
I love that thought process that there's like a bunch of chemical engineers like, okay, it has to smell good, but not too good that
Right.
people are going to steal it.
But I feel like the Sea Marine one has been around for a while, though. Like, I don't know. I think I have a bunch of that we took a really long time ago.
Well, it's definitely been around since at least 2016 because that's the first time I stayed in a resort, and this is the only scent that I've ever experienced. But it's kind of a bummer after seeing people having like orange blossom scented stuff when they stayed before. And I'm like, that actually sounds like it smells really good.
Yeah.
But I guess this is a little bit of like a extra Disney nerd conversation that we're having, literally
Yeah.
about the toiletries and the resorts.
I mean, I'm sure we could do a whole episode on that kind of stuff, but yeah. So I wanted to also tell you this story because I have. Here's the moment where everyone's going to tune me out and say that I'm being way too negative, but I want to talk about what happened during our last stay while we were at the Poly. We were walking from our room, which I think I've explained this on the last show. We were like right near the Ticket and Transportation Center. So we were the last building in along the beach at the Poly. So we had to actually walk along the beach to get back to the Great Ceremonial House for most things. Now the Poly's under a ton of construction right now, and it's not very appealing if you're looking for like a first time deluxe hotel stay. Like, it was nice. We still had a great time. And obviously, you know, these changes are going to happen to make the resort better. But like, for example, half of the Great Ceremonial House was under construction because of the monorail construction that they're doing in that one section. Like you couldn't actually even enter through the front lobby, and they had a makeshift front lobby in the Pongo Pongo building. So it was a little
Wow.
weird. Yeah, but all that to say, on the walk from our room to the Great Ceremonial House, the building that they're putting the Moana rooms in is actually right next to that. I think it's the first building because they had construction all around it. And one of the things that I found super weird about this was that the rooms that they were working in on the bottom floor of that building they had the curtains open on all of the rooms. They were gutted, and a lot of the furniture was still in there, but was leaning against the walls. So it looked like somebody went through the rooms at the Poly, ripped them apart, and just like left all the furniture there. But to see that in a Disney resort was just so bizarre to me because it's like, I mean, obviously it's a different time. It's, we're in the middle of a pandemic and Disney's still operating at a limited capacity. But like seeing that was just so weird because they're not hiding it, which is strange. Mm-hmm. But there's my rant, which was, it's really funny to me because we walked by it and me, wanting to see what was going on. I was like, oh, what's going on in there? And then I realized the Moana rooms are getting refurbished. And I mean, I was less interested after that, but it was still pretty cool to like see them actually going through and ripping stuff apart. Now, none of this stuff was in there. So who knows if it's actually like that specific thing or they're doing something else, but that's all I could think it might be. So next news topic that we've gotten here, I'm going to go with, this is the last one. So yeah, we're going to go with this one anyway. Surprise news topic. Disney Genie app is still in the works and it's still coming soon, which means it's not happening, but Disney wants us to think it is. Actually, we haven't talked about a lot of stuff that's happened recently in the Disney news sphere. So I kind of want to bounce off of that with another thing, but we'll talk about that in a second. There was a big press media conference earlier this week, to which Josh DiMauro told us that apparently it's still in the works. They're still working on it. It's still coming. Obviously, with the pandemic, they're not really rolling a ton of new stuff out, but it's still in the sphere of things that are coming. How do you guys feel about this?
I'm probably not going to use it anyway, so I don't really care, to be completely honest.
Honestly, this is one of those things where I understand that Disney wants their own official app that does this, but there's already other websites that do this much better.
Right. Hire
This is
Win Testa.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is Disney acknowledging that touring planes exist. That's all this is.
And the thing is honest, I get that they don't want another company to be able to do this, but this is one of those things where I think Disney really needs to step back and say, hey, this other company who we don't have to invest any money in that is doing this, and making their own money on the side, and it's bringing business, it's helping us out, honestly. And we're not having to pay for it. Why don't you just let them do that? They're doing it well. Don't spend all this time and money developing this app that, I'm sorry, I know I'm being negative, but until I see Disney release an app that functions well, I'm going to have this negative opinion about it. And I don't think that when this app comes out, it's going to work as well as touring plans. So just let touring plans do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing about touring plans is that they, being a third party, they have the consumer's best interest at heart, because they're like, you guys pay us for this service that we want to provide to you, or you're going to stop paying it. So they have incentive to be good at what they're doing. And Disney, on the other hand, the reason that if you go on Touring Plans Wait Times app and you see that the wait is posted at 90 minutes, but they're expecting it to only be 45, is because Disney doesn't want you to get in that line.
Right.
They want you to go somewhere else because the wait looks too long, so that the crowd can die down a little bit before they post the actual wait time.
Right. And we talked about that on my trip report too. Like, I used the Touring Plans Lines app, which, normally I'm the kind of person that I will run one app for one specific thing. Like, I'm not going to download 4 different Disney World apps to plan my trip. And Disney almost kind of forces you at this point to use the My Disney experience, especially with, coming down the pipeline, they're trying to get rid of the Magic Band thing and put that on your phone as well. But the fact that I went out of my way, downloaded lines, and actually used that because it's crowdsourced data, not Disney's data that they're putting in front of you, all of those wait times were so much more accurate. And
Oh, yeah.
like just looking at the wait times and seeing like, okay, Splash Mountain's posted at a 75-minute wait, but Line says it's only 45 minutes. Like that's a significant difference.
Right.
Well, it's like Beth said, I mean, it's no huge secret. We know that Disney does not always give accurate wait times on purpose in order to move crowds around the park. And this is just going to be that to an even more extreme level when you're able to look at it in your hand and they're doing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, again, I don't think it's going to change much. I mean, most of this functionality is already available in the My Disney Experience app. It's just not as easy to get to and not as conveniently put in front of you. So I think that people are still going to use touring plans that know about it because of the experience it offers.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this works, and I will be the person that tests it out just to test it out. Like,
I mean, I'll definitely look into it, but I don't see myself using this as like an actual resource.
No. And I mean, I don't know, not to hang on to this one for too long, but I feel like the other thing that, like, to me, it's wild that Disney again doesn't give up this portion of the space because, like we said, you know, touring plans exist. That kind of is the big competitor to this at this point. And really the only thing that from what we've seen is kind of a direct competition, but like there are so many other places that they're giving up the room that not necessarily they could take up, but like, I don't know, they still allow travel agents to book and they still specifically put, you know, the earmarked travel agent stuff out there. Like they have training for travel agents. So it's not like they're trying to infringe in that space. They don't do their own travel guides. So what really pushed them to make this Disney Genie planning app is what I want to know. Like, where did they say touring plans is that much of a effect on our, you know, Disney goer vacation that they were like, this is a thing that we need to do our own thing for.
Exactly. And like one of the first things that I thought about with this was that like at the campgrounds, Disney really works, or at least allows a lot of third-party companies to come in there that will come in and like set campers up for you if you don't have your own camper to come in there. They allow a lot of third-party golf cart rental companies to come in there and allow you just to rent golf carts while you're at the campground. And these are like the golf carts are things that Disney already, you could rent from them. So it's weird to me to see when Disney has stuff like that they are actually probably like losing money on because you are actually going to somebody else for the same service that they offer. I don't understand why something like this that Disney is not getting extra money from you for would not just let touring plans do it for free, basically, for them. It only benefits Disney. I don't understand this.
I don't know. But it's going to be interesting, and I can't wait to see what happens because, as always, I'm cautiously optimistic about something that Disney's doing. So last thing I want to talk about before we move on is this, the big buzz about this whole media coverage thing is that Josh D'Amaro revealed a real lightsaber on their conference. Did you guys hear about this?
Hold up. What?
So at the end of the way that it happened was on their conference, they covered a bunch of different things. And right before they went to the Avengers campus at Disneyland, Josh D'Amaro pulled out a lightsaber, turned it on, and said, yes, it's actually real. And then they cut to the Avengers campus stuff.
Okay, now hang on. When you say it's real,
so
what are we saying here exactly?
There's actually in the article that I posted, if you scroll down, there's a tweet embedded into it, and I've watched that a couple times. The basic, from my understanding, now obviously I am no engineer by any means, I am not smart enough to figure this stuff out, but it supposedly turns on and actually like comes up like a lightsaber would, and the blade part would be transparent. But the way that they're doing it is kind of like tape measures, how they extend out. There's actually like a little animation in here that shows the pattern and everything.
It doesn't actually cut people's like arms off and stuff.
No, so it's not like an actual weapon. My thought is it's going to be more for like the Galactic Star Cruiser thing, because in some of the concept art, there's been like the whole, the scene with Luke in Star Wars where he's learning how to block that droid that's shooting at him thing. Like, I think it's going to be stuff like that is where we're going to see this. It's not going to be like build your own at Savi's kind of thing, but everybody was losing their mind that Josh D'Amaro pulled out a real lightsaber.
But can you really call it a real lightsaber if it doesn't cut people's arms off?
I mean,
I don't think so.
Realistic retractable lightsaber, I think, is a more accurate term.
Yeah, this is like when the hoverboard thing. It's like, you know what? Y'all came out too early calling this thing a hoverboard, and it does not hover. Like, they can't christen this the real lightsaber. And then, what if in 10 years down the road we have like a actual lightsaber? Then it's like, oh, dang, we shouldn't have called that first thing the real lightsaber. We look stupid now.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Well, I hope that it is a real lightsaber of some kind, or at least looks like a real lightsaber.
Looks like is the key phrase, I think.
And functions however, we would expect it to.
Without cutting people's arms off.
Well, yeah, no, I don't want that to happen. So that brings us to our topic for this week, which was suggested to us by someone on our Discord. Taco Bell Mel suggested that we talk about some Disney rides, lands, hotels that never were. Mainly because we've talked about, and other people have talked about, some rides that were there but are no longer around. So it's interesting to talk about maybe some concepts that didn't make it through, got cut on the chopping block, or even I have a couple things in here that were rumors but not necessarily 100% confirmed to be true, which I think is going to be exciting. So how do we want to start and just go in the list order that we've got here?
Sure.
Then that brings you up first, Beth.
Yes. So I did a good amount of research on the hotels that Disney originally designed that never came to fruition. The first of which was Disney's Asian Resort, which was designed in the 1960s and envisioned to be a Thai-themed resort, which would sit on the Seven Seas Lagoon. And it had been advertised in all the pre-opening literature for the resort for Walt Disney World's opening in 1971. And a square-shaped plot of land had even been set aside near Seven Seas Lagoon's northwestern shore for the resort. So construction of the hotel was scheduled to start in 1974, with the resort operating by the end of that year. And an access road called Asian Way was created to be able to support the site. So this resort was, like I said, Thai-themed, and it was intended to feature a large central building, which was going to be over 160 feet tall, with a restaurant on top, similar to the contemporary resort's Top of the World Lounge, Top of the World restaurant. Guest rooms would have been arranged in a square around the perimeter on 3 sides, leaving the side opposite the Seven Seas Lagoon open. The original plans called for 600 rooms, but later revisions scaled it down to 500, and 50 of those were supposed to be deluxe suites that were themed after Thai royalty. So the foundation for the resort was built, but 2 oil embargoes led to the 1970s energy crisis, and leisure travel came almost to a standstill because people stopped driving for fear of not being able to find fuel when they were out and about. So, since automobile travel was the main method of transportation at the time to get to Disney World, the decline in tourism caused an obvious decline in demand for hotel rooms, and the construction on the Asian resort was halted. And that land stayed empty until Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa opened on that same site in 1988, and the access road called Asian Way was renamed to Floridian Way. So I feel like a lot of this was kind of in the same vein as the Poly.
Yeah, that's
like the
kind of how I was
structure of
feeling
it
about it.
sounds-
It seems like the Poly very much.
Right. I think it was very heavily inspired, or vice versa. But the 1970s energy crisis also caused the cancellation of Disney's Venetian Resort, which was planned to be located on the resort monorail line between the TTC and the Contemporary. So this resort would have included a city of canals where guests could travel by gondola underneath ornate bridges to various sections of the resort. And it was kind of part of their entrance way. Here, welcome to the resort. Here's a gondola. It's very cool. And this hotel's icon was going to be a 120-foot tall Italian bell tower, which was designed to resemble the one in St. Mark's Square in Italy, which a rendition of this can be seen at the Italy Pavilion in Epcot, that tall bell tower. That was supposed to be the icon of this. But unlike the Venetian and Asian resorts, the Persian resort was going to be located on Bay Lake rather than the Seven Seas Lagoon. And it was going to be laid out in a circular design with a central building topped with a 24-foot dome that housed the entrance area, a restaurant, shops, meeting facilities, and early drawings for this resort also showed a monorail track from the resort through Tomorrowland.
Interesting.
Despite one of Walt's dying wishes being to keep the monorail out of the park's perimeter. So
I don't really see how that fits in with the Persian theming, but
right.
whatever.
Seems like more convenience. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go that route too, I don't know how the monorail really ties into like the Polynesian theming.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, realistically, it only fits into the Contemporary.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's, I don't know, kind of hidden enough on the other resorts to where it doesn't feel like it's part of the resort.
Oh yeah,
You know-
I mean, with the Contemporary and it running right through the lobby like
Right.
that, it's got to tie in there.
Yeah. So forms from 1978 actually showed that the Shah of Iran, which is like their, political leader, had offered to fund the project's construction and operation. And although the energy crisis was the main cause of this project's cancellation, it was permanently shelved after the Iranian Revolution, which was a series of protests that resulted in the Shah's overthrow.
So basically, it sounds like it had similar problems to a lot of Epcot.
Yes, definitely reminiscent of Epcot's, especially Morocco right now, where Disney's having to go through and buy all of the stuff from various other vendors and tenants.
Yeah.
So the final resort that I did research on was Disney's Mediterranean Resort. So after the success of the Grand Floridian when it opened, CEO at the time, Michael Eisner, wanted to build a resort to rival the luxury that the Grand Floridian had to offer and wanted to one-up the 4-star status of the Grand Floridian. So they developed plans for a 5-star Venetian-themed resort that they were revisiting from the original Venetian resort. This time it was going to be titled Disney's Grand Venezia Resort. I don't know if I said that right, but
Sounds right.
the project's design was a collaboration between Walt Disney Imagineering and the same architectural firm that helped design the Grand Flo. And early blueprints indicated that this resort would include intricate buildings featuring terracotta roofs and the original network of canals that we talked about a second ago, where they could travel via gondola, and also had lighted fountains, a masquerade-themed pool, a conference center, and a wedding chapel. But these plans were discarded in favor of the Mediterranean resort, which was obviously going to be themed after a small Greek island. And the land was cleared, but construction revealed that the area was unstable, and the pylons that they would need to support the hotel would have had to have been deeper than those even used on Spaceship Earth. So, obviously, because of that, cost estimates skyrocketed, and eventually the plans were dropped altogether. So the land that was cleared for this was replanted and now is a nice, lush, thick forest that you travel past on the monorail track.
The funny thing about all these that you just went over is that on all the other ones, it kind of makes sense why they got scrapped. Like, there were direct financial issues that came up that caused it. But this last one for the Mediterranean resort, it's like, I don't understand why they couldn't have just built it elsewhere. Like,
Yeah.
the only issue was, like, the original plot of land wasn't going to work. So it's like, okay, scrap the whole thing.
Yeah, just forget about it.
Well, I mean, we'll never know, obviously, because we're not there. But I feel like, at least for the case of one of the ones that I found, it was probably something like money ran out elsewhere, or like this money was everything that they could afford to put into this right now, and investing that again would be too much.
That's a good point. The other thing about this one that gets me too is that, like, Michael Eisner was behind this, when he was just the fact that he was so famous for, this single and doubles approach, but he really was swinging for the fences when he decided that he wanted to be a part of this hotel, that he was trying to top the Grand Floridian,
Right, definitely.
But yeah, I don't. It's kind of strange to me that other than the 3 monorail resorts, there's really not been any build up around Bay Lake and everything or Seven Seas for hotel wise. Which I don't know. It just there's so much space out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting especially because of the like newer stuff that's popped up in recent years that's not anywhere near Magic Kingdom. Maybe they've seen like a trend of people wanting, I don't know, to be in the Disney bubble but not be on. I don't know why you wouldn't want to be that close, but yeah, it's hard to imagine why they wouldn't want to build more, hotel space around that area.
Right.
I know. Wasn't there one planned, like in the last couple of years? There was another one that they were planned on building space in that area, but I don't know if it ever actually came through.
Not that I heard, but I could be wrong.
The Reflections building.
Oh,
yeah. I had to look it up.
Wasn't that going to be like near Fort Wilderness?
Wait, is that the one that was going to be built on River Country?
No, that is the one that was going to be built on River Country.
Okay. Which, see, that seems so weird. It's like, why are you building on top of, like, the graveyard of a water park when there is so much other space around there? I don't know. I'm sure it makes sense to people, like, surveying the land and doing all that, but to me, it just seems weird.
I guess we can include Reflections in this things that never happened now, too, huh?
Yeah.
Getting that project get all scrapped as well.
Well, I know when we did a DVC tour 2 years ago. Yeah, it was 2019. And the guy that we were talking to I think he was trying to sell his points for either that one or it was something else. And he was talking about the Reflections Resort and how it was like going to be the last one on Bay Lake, and there's not that much room, so that's the big sell for it. It's in that vicinity, but I don't know. It just feels weird that, like you said, there's not much there anymore.
I mean, I don't really feel like they knew what they were doing with Reflections anyway. They were gonna have a Princess and the Frog restaurant, but like, why not put that at Port Orleans?
Yeah, that's just that fits.
Like, they're just like, what can we throw in? Princess and the Frog, that's a hot topic right now. Maybe one day we'll get a new resort on the monorail area.
Maybe. So this week I did a little research on a part of Disney history that has always been very interesting to me, and that is Mineral King. So the story behind this is that in the early 60s, the National Forest Service wanted to allot an area outside of Sequoia National Park to be made into a ski resort in an effort to try to bring more money into that area. And this location was known as Mineral King Valley. It was an old mining town that sprung up at the end of the 1800s, but had pretty much been abandoned and was now grown over in just a piece of natural wilderness at this point in time. So by 1965, Disney, along with 5 other companies, submitted proposals of their planned ski resorts on this land. And ultimately, Walt and the rest of the Imagineers and team on this ended up beating out all the competitors. And it's funny because the thing that really set their bid apart that helped them win was that Walt knew that ski resorts were really only profitable during the winter. So in Grand Walt fashion, he wanted to do this up much bigger and better than this just being a ski resort. So on top of it, operating as a ski resort in the winter, he wanted to include a ton of other entertainment options like theaters, hotels, shops, restaurants, skating rinks, and even a golf course, so that this would be making money year round. And so because of that, this looked like a very lucrative proposal that was going to bring money to the area, and the National Forest Service said, yeah, Disney, you'll be the one to do that. And of course, I'd be remiss if I did not mention that the highlight of the Mineral King Resort would be the Country Bear Jamboree attraction. But what's funny is that this really grandiose idea that the Imagineers came up with, it was pretty much the downfall of the resort, because this was going to require so much modification to the undeveloped natural beauty of Mineral King. A ton of wilderness activists were outraged by this, most notably the Sierra Club. And pretty much immediately after it was announced what Disney was planning, they were receiving backlash like crazy, because I think the funny thing that I had read was that, I mean, there were literally in this area planned, I think there were like 30 campsites set up. The rest of it was just pristine wilderness, and Disney is, to a much or less extent, but from what they saw, they're plopping down Disneyland in the middle of this national park. So they faced really bad PR when this first came out, which kind of delayed the project a little bit. And then another huge thing that happened was that in 1970, Richard Nixon passed the National Environmental Policy Act. This meant that before any large-scale development on a national park like this would require that an impact report be made and analyzed before anyone was able to break ground. So not only was that going to obviously scale back what Disney was going to be able to do, the report itself wasn't even finished until 1976. This is, 11 years after Disney has won the bid to build this resort. So by this time, Disney's been, getting beat around in the press about destroying this national park, basically, by putting this resort there. They've been facing lawsuits from the Sierra Club, and now they found out that because of the environmental impact report, not only is it taking so long for them to even be able to start work on this, but it's going to severely impact what they're going to be able to do. So 11 years after Disney won the bid, they've kind of grown tired of working on this, and it's looking like it's not going to be a good idea for them to move forward with. And then eventually, the final nail in the coffin was the 1978 National Parks and Recreation Act that Congress passed, and this officially made Mineral King a federally designated wilderness that was fully incorporated into the Sequoia National Park, and because of that would not be able to be developed upon. So it's interesting to think of what could have been from this plan, but at least we got the world's best attraction out of it.
I just moved my show notes around because I feel like this is a really good transition into one of the topics that I had, because it mirrors it very similarly. Is Disney's America. I don't want to take up too much time with this because I feel like we could talk about this for a while.
And I do think that someone suggested we do a whole episode on this, if I recall correctly.
Probably, so. But just to give you quick highlights, and also if you want more information, there's a Defunctland video that's like 40 minutes long that does this whole thing like an incredible amount of justice. But if you don't know, Disney's America was a planned theme park that was planned to be built in Virginia, about 5 miles away from the site of the Manassas National Battlefield Park. Now, as is with most Disney projects, they plan to go super big. And it was going to feature 9 themed lands inside of a 185-acre park, a few thousand hotels rooms, a golf course, and 200 million square feet for retail space, which is massive. This whole project would have been super accessible from the interstate that was nearby and was like just west of Washington, D.C. So basically, Disney announces this park in 1993, and it would have been dedicated to the history of the United States and was scheduled to open in 98 with a $650 million budget, though the project was initially supported by political officers and political officials and Virginia officials. The public didn't really take to it as well as Disney really wanted. Part of it was because they didn't want Disney's magical spin on historical events, and they also didn't want the potential impact of the nearby historical sites. It was canceled within a year of it being announced, which is absolutely crazy. All of that said, there's a lot of crazy things that go into this. Part of it, is that Disneyland Paris opened and that wasn't a huge success, so there wasn't a lot of funding. Again, the whole backlash from the public was massive, and Eisner eventually pulled out of the project. But what I did find interesting is that apparently in 97, the Knott's Berry family farm in California went up for sale, and Disney almost bought it with the plan to turn Knott's Berry Farm into this Disney's America concept. However, Knott's refused to sell to Disney, and you could kind of see why.
I love it. They're like, yeah, we're selling our park, but not to you.
Yeah. But I love Disney's America as a concept. It's just so out there.
Yeah.
It's very America is what it is.
Yeah. But so for some of the other things that I have on here, I did a lot of like weird research. Like I pulled a bunch of little things that I thought were interesting that we could potentially talk about. And most of the things that I found were, I could see why they were canceled. Mainly this first one that I have on here I have them all broken down by sections too. So the first thing I want to talk about is a bunch of attractions. And the first one that I found was a attraction called Dick Tracy's Crime Stoppers. Have you guys heard about this at all?
A bit.
Sounds
Because
like a classic.
This is so wild. So it was planned for MGM at the time, and it would have guests boarding a high-class 1920s car that utilized the same technology as Indiana Jones and Dinosaur. But then what makes it even more wild is that guests would be armed with a Tommy gun that was docked to the vehicle, similar to Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger spin. Uh-oh. Imagine being on Dinosaur and trying to shoot the dinosaurs.
Jeez. I was trying to keep my stuff from flying all over the place on Dinosaur.
So ultimately what ended up being the downfall was the lackluster blockbuster success of the Dick Tracy film. And
shocking.
There were some legal issues involving the film rights that prevented a sequel, so the franchise was let go along with the ride. Man. I almost wish that this came to the light of day because that's just such a wild concept.
I do, and you know what? We would have gotten like a half-developed Madonna animatronic out of this, which is fantastic to think about.
Oh boy.
I just imagine this entire attraction being like that one scene in the Great Movie Ride, but with a gun on your vehicle.
The gangster scene.
Yes, and much more rocky, I guess, because of the ride technology.
That's the part that I just don't get is like Indiana Jones and Dinosaur they're not smooth rides. How did they expect guests to maintain the Tommy gun that they're supposed to shoot?
I mean, I guess to be fair, in Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin, that vehicle's really hard to control and you still have to shoot stuff, but
I mean, the guns are also not super accurate on Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger spin.
That's also true.
So one of the other things I had on here was, I feel like this one's been circled around a lot, but the Fire Mountain project that was planned for Adventureland, it was supposed to be like a roller coaster that would take you through a volcano, and that's been talked about a lot. But the interesting thing that seems to come up a lot in discussion of this roller coaster, but no one ever actually knows how it works, is that the coaster was planned to begin as a standard coaster, but then would eventually switch tracks with riders in it about halfway through to turn it into a suspended coaster.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The crazy thing about this, though, is that like it almost as soon as it was announced kind of got discarded, like a lot of Disney projects. But just the fact that there was talk of it being such a breakthrough thing, and then Disney was like, yeah, we're not going to do that, kind of to me says that they never actually thought the project through to begin with. But this one circles around a bit, and after Moana's success, there was a rumor that Moana was actually going to revive the Fire Mountain project, and it was going to be a volcano roller coaster themed around Moana. But again, that rumor seems to have died out.
I mean, I'm kind of glad, to be honest, because I don't feel like Moana is a very good roller coaster theme.
Yeah, and I also feel like putting anything in Adventureland, there's not a ton of space for it. I don't know.
Yeah, and especially a roller coaster. Like, I don't think they have the space to do a really thrilling roller coaster there.
Yeah, I feel like it would be at the expense of something like the Tiki Room. Mm-hmm. And, well, I would say the expense of the Magic Carpets of Aladdin, but would that be a loss? But similarly enough, another attraction that was very short-lived was a Bald Mountain attraction. I'm out. I can't find where this was supposed to be set, but it seems to be that this rumor kind of ties hand in hand with the Fire Mountain thing. So I think maybe it was like two ideas that were tossed around at the same time. But the idea of the ride was that guests were going to board a vehicle. Some people say it was a roller coaster, but from some of the concept art that I found, it seems more like a boat ride, kind of like the boats in the underworld in Hercules. The whole plot was that all of the Disney villains were coming together to attack guests. And the one thing that seems to be pretty consistent is that there would be a drop near the end where guests would be nearly missed by Chernabog himself. So kind of similar to Expedition Everest. I think this may have been like kind of a concept that it got some inspiration from.
I would love to see Disco Chernabog, though.
Give him some platform shoes and a sequins jacket. There it is. Somebody draw up the next t-shirt idea.
Yeah, I love that, honestly.
Disco Chernabog. Oh. But this next one that I have is by far one of my favorite ideas that has never happened at Disney. And I think we've talked about this before, too. But there was apparently a David Copperfield themed restaurant planned for MGM when it first got built. It was called Copperfield's Magic Underground back in 1996. After much success of being a magician, David Copperfield decided to try his hand at being a restaurant owner, which...
Because those things are totally related.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know where he got that idea from, but sure, let's go with that. So David Copperfield takes to the public to announce that he's going to be opening two locations, one in New York and then the other on the most magical place on Earth, Walt Disney World. So much like Planet Hollywood or Hard Rock Cafe, the walls were going to be basically artifacts of both David Copperfield and other well-known magicians, magical goodies, and other like artifacts, I guess you could say. The Disney location, there was going to be two of them. One would be set in downtown Disney's Pleasure Island, and then the other one would be in MGM Studios. They're both set to open alongside of their New York counterpart, but unfortunately in 1996, the New York restaurant, which at this point had a lot of its interior stuff collected and was being built, pretty much ran out of money. So it found itself way over budget. All of the investors found themselves incredibly uncomfortable with the loss and began to pull out. So without any announcement, Disney pulls all of the billboards that they had installed about the project and just kind of canceled the lease. Disney walked away completely unaffected, as did David Copperfield, but their investors lost approximately $34 million in this crash.
Wow.
Yeah. I also think it's hysterical that Disney put up these billboards and like these photos that are in the WDW radio article I put up. It's like coming soon, Phantasmic, coming soon, David Copperfield. And it's like, you have to know that when they pulled those down, it was probably just like overnight, don't say anything, nothing happened here.
Can we talk about this photo of Michael Eisner and David Copperfield though on that same
How are they doing that?
It's like magic.
I just love his
secret.
bow tie.
Dude, I bet Michael Eisner was eating this up. He's like, look at me doing a trick.
Oh man.
I love this story. And the fact that like Disney and David Copperfield walked away with no loss is just so funny to me.
Yeah. Good on them, I guess.
Could you imagine Michael Eisner losing $34 million for the Disney company, investing it in a restaurant?
Jeez.
I mean, I'm sure there's worse things, like at Disneyland Paris. That was not great.
How did 2 restaurants even cost that much?
Right.
So from
Was
the
he
one
gonna
article,
perform at them? Like, what the heck?
so from what I was reading, there's a lot of crazy things that went into it. Part of it was the design of the restaurant. Let's see if I can find it. Basically, when it was starting to be built, they got everything like for the interior, so they spent a lot of money with that. But then they also had this, where was it? There was like a crazy idea that had something involving like, oh, here it is. The more interesting theme to this eatery is in the New York location, New York City dock look based on Copperfield's vanishing of the Statue of Liberty with a replica piece of the Statue of Liberty itself along the walls. Even the logo is the torch of the Statue of Liberty as seen in the picture. So like nothing about this restaurant was cheap at all, and that's where I think they lost so much of the money. Was they just spent it, and that's basically what happened and how they lost it all.
But still, $34 million.
Yeah.
That's not even how much it cost. That's how much they lost after everything. Like, that's so much money.
Yeah, I would love to have seen the final numbers for like what the actual restaurant cost when they decided to stop, because that would probably hurt.
Yeah, when you're able to say, hey, we're at least 34 million deep into this, we need to cut it here. Like, yeah, what was it gonna be? Jeez.
I like at the end of this article that the, I guess, author of the article said, with only shopping and counter service along the walkway to Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster, it would have been a great addition to the park's already great restaurant selection. I would have enjoyed seeing someone like Chris Angel come in and put his name on the product as well, giving it a new energy and new life if possible. I got a hard disagree on both of those points. Great restaurant selection at Hollywood Studios. Chris Angel, come on, guy, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, I would have been interested to see what happened there, but
I've got it. The Chris Angel theme. You just come in and sit down, and he's already predicted what you wanted to order, and they just bring the food out to you.
Magic. Oh, man.
oh geez. Well, next things I have on here are concepts of lands, which I feel like a lot of these we've pretty much been over and are pretty well documented, so we can kind of breeze through these. One of the ones that I did want to talk about that I find this whole thing interesting when concept art like announces something but doesn't really announce it, and Disney's quickly able to pull that project, because we've seen that happen a couple times. But this one, I feel like there was at least enough buzz online for me to be able to sort through that. But apparently the original concept of New Fantasyland featured a Pixie Hollow themed area, which that would have been awesome to actually get to see come to light.
But, like, how big is that franchise?
I mean, not big, but it would have been cool to have that like little bit of, you know.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure it would have been, but I feel like the reason it probably didn't actually happen.
But I get where you're coming from. It is kind of a niche franchise, and to have that take up a big chunk of spaces, But I'm
waiting for the comments on this episode of everyone in Discord telling me which Tinkerbell movies I need to watch.
Okay, but we could do a whole discussion on that one because those movies are pretty good. The Never
I watched
Beast
one of them. I can't remember which one. It was something about a magical rock that she was supposed to protect, and then she broke it or something. A magical staff. I don't remember. I remember it being okay.
The Never Beast movie is really good.
Tinkerbell kind of being an awful character, though.
Wasn't she always?
She's always been pretty bad.
Why do people like her so much? She's such a brat.
I know. She tried to kill Wendy.
It's true. She literally dies if you don't give her enough attention.
Does she? I didn't even know that.
Isn't that her concept, Tinkerbell?
Maybe.
Like if you don't give her enough attention, or you don't believe in her or something, she dies.
Well, yeah, that's like the concept of fairies, though.
Well, yeah, but she got an attitude about it.
She doesn't want to die.
Yeah, why can't you just die with dignity, Tinkerbell, like the rest of the fairies?
Or concept, make them do something that makes people like you and want to give you attention. And then you don't have to worry about it. If you're a brat, why would anybody want to?
This feels incredibly post-show, but
we ain't there yet.
Let's revert back to the concept of a Pixie Hollow Land. Let me ask you this question. Would you rather have the Pixie Hollow Land or the massive chunk of Storybook Circus that Casey's Jr.'s Splash and Soak area takes up?
I guess that's a fair point. I would rather have the Pixie Hollow.
Because, looking at this concept art, right? Like the 2009 concept art for New Fantasyland, Pixie Hollow is where the Splash Zone is. And then you have, looks like Barnstormer's still there. And then the 2 tracks for Dumbo are still there. So, if they did this, it would feasibly, make sense to have that there. It also looks like The Little Mermaid has a way bigger presence than it does now.
Yeah, it does. And I do have to say, the Pixie Hollow area on this concept art looks really cute.
Yeah, and it's not
It would have
big,
been great for the Instagrammers to take pictures in.
Oh, gosh. But off of that, I wanted to briefly touch on this because I feel like this is easy enough to find information about all of the World Showcase pavilions that never happened, because there are plenty of them. You have things like Denmark, we have Costa Rica, we have Iran was supposed to be one, Scandinavia, Russia, Israel. There was one for Spain, United Arab Pavilion, Venezuela, Australia, the Africa Pavilion, which
hey, we got that.
One can argue we did get that.
Kinda.
We got the budget-friendly version of that.
Right.
And then we got the Switzerland Pavilion on here as well, complete with a Matterhorn roller coaster that we never got.
Where?
So any of
these... Where would that be? Where would that go? Where would that fit in Epcot? How would they have room for that?
It's Epcot. They would have found a way.
I guess. I mean, not saying I wouldn't have liked to have seen it. I just don't see how it could have happened. I want to know what of these pavilions you guys would have liked to have seen the most.
So just based on what I was reading, honestly, the Russia Pavilion.
Yes, same. That one looks so cool.
It looks really cool, but then the other thing that's interesting about this is at the time, U.S. and the Soviet Union weren't really on good terms. So,
I mean, are we now?
No, but I mean, having that idea in your head that they're gonna build Russia in a U.S. park. And, they're not favoring them. I kind of want to know how that would have turned out and if it would have been something that would have got, the axe shortly after. What about you, Brian?
I'm curious to see what they would have really been able to do with the Australia Pavilion, because I feel like, I don't know, other than the Sydney Opera House, like so much of Australia's appeal is like the openness of it, and like not the landmarks, I guess, like most of these other ones are. So I'm curious about that. The Switzerland one would have been very cool, at least from this concept art, I think, having a like giant, Matterhorn-esque mountain in the background of Epcot. I'm curious as to how they would have worked that in.
Mm-hmm. Would have loved to have seen them try.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the last thing that I have on here, which I feel like is also very, very well documented, is the Beastly Kingdom land that we almost got in Animal Kingdom. For those that don't know, obviously Animal Kingdom focuses on the real and the conservation aspects of nature. However, there was a planned section that, much like Pandora, featured a lot of mythical creatures, not real world stuff. So much so that like when the signs for Animal Kingdom started being built, there were dragons and stuff placed on them. So we very much almost got this land, but due to budget cuts, we ended up not getting to see the light of day on the Beastly Kingdom stuff. Some notable things that would have happened is that there would have been
and like what a slap in the face, though, that the area that they were planning this for got turned into Camp Mini Mickey. Like they didn't even do anything cool with it until Pandora.
Well, and I think that's also kind of a weird slap in the face too. I wonder how, and I know we'll never get this answer, I wonder how Joe Rohde feels about this, because like you have this idea for a grand and mythical section, and then it's like, oh well, we don't have the budget to do that, so let's just throw together Camp Mini Mickey. And then they're like, yeah, but now we have the budget, so let's do this thing where we make it about a movie that no one cares about.
Yeah, and honestly, like I enjoy Pandora a lot, and I think Disney did a really incredible job with it, but I also hate the people that are like, oh, well, yeah, this is in the spirit of Beastly Kingdom and what was going to be there initially. And it's like, come on, that ain't the same thing.
Right.
It's like in the spirit, in the sense that like it's not real creatures, and I get that. Like, I mean, I see that argument, but it's just so, I don't know.
It's like the only things that they really have in common is that they're both based on
mythical creatures.
Yeah, imaginary creatures, not real life creatures.
Yeah. But some of the notable attractions that are also pretty decently documented are the Fantasia Gardens, which was an attraction themed after the movie Fantasia, which would have been a musical boat ride. Sound familiar, anyone?
Yo.
Except you're taken through the scenes of Fantasia, where the animal scenes of the movies. We also would have had Dragon's Tower, which was a roller coaster-esque ride, where guests would explore a tower ruled by a fire-breathing dragon that housed a bunch of treasure in the tower's dragon chamber. The climax of the ride would also feature a large dragon animatronic that would kind of almost char the train. That sounds dangerous, and it also, again, sounds like the Yeti in Expedition Everest.
Sounds like that King Kong ride that's gone as a child.
And then there's also the Quest of the Unicorn, which is a maze leading to a grotto where a unicorn lived. I feel like I've seen so much about this that I don't know. I still just don't know how this would have worked. I feel like a maze attraction is not something the U.S. parks would really have around for a while.
I'm not even trying to be funny. Like, I would be super pumped for Quest of the Unicorn. I love just kind of like stroll around, walk around. Like, I love Tom Sawyer Island. I love Swiss Family Treehouse. I understand that most people don't, but I am completely on board with a maze with a unicorn in it.
Yeah.
Kind of off of this, like, this is incredibly tangential. Do you guys follow Beastly the Unicorn on Instagram?
No.
Okay, so there was at one point in time a unicorn statue in Animal Kingdom that was part of where like you know how there's remnants of Beastly Kingdom around the parks where there used to be. Well, one of the statues got bought by somebody, and I just shared their Instagram page. They dress the unicorn up all the time, and it's just this entire Instagram is just the unicorn, but it's got different things on it.
I wish I had disposable income to do stuff like this with.
Oh my God, yes. I love this. This Instagram is everything I'm about in life, to be honest.
I was looking at it, and then when I started talking about this, I was like, I should probably bring that up, and I wanted to see if you specifically followed it, Beth, because I was like, this is something you would very much be about. But
I didn't before, but I do now.